we go. All right, and in the top right corner as the red Protoss, we will have Remag. At the top left as the orange Zerg, we will have LRM CaStrO.
All right. Now, I have to say though that I'm quite in. I would say that usually I would favor CaStrO just because LRM, but the thing is, Remag actually has very solid game style, and CaStrO likes to abuse small timings. So I think this probably should go Remag's way. I think. He likes to go because Remag is the kind of player who really enjoys just the standard play style, where you usually have to face a lot of all-ins and things like these.
Yeah.
On the other hand, CaStrO is not a player that enjoys to go for the standard style and then go for the later stages of the game. He enjoys to be very aggressive. And although I have to say that lately I have seen him maybe try to go to the later stages of the game, the last time that I've seen him in the TSL play, he was doing okay, and at some point he just gave up. He couldn't continue that. So if Remag saw that game, he might actually be ready for that.
Yeah, that's a very good analysis. Actually, I think Remag definitely has more experience in like the super late game PvZ, possibly compared to like almost any foreigner Protoss player, just because of how often he plays that matchup and how he tends to drag out the games. Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I don't really know CaStrO's form right now. I mean, I was actually a little bit surprised that he ended up in the tiebreaker round. I would have thought he'd be able to actually make it sort of secure a spot in the top 32. So definitely could see an interesting game here. I mean, oh my god, the drone even I think just shot its friend right there. So very interesting miss micro from CaStrO right off the bat. But in the meantime, we do see the pretty standard Forge fast expand here against what looks like it was an overpull into expand.
Now, the funny thing about this is that CaStrO did manage actually to scout the first location, which I think is pretty good for him, because if you want to be aggressive, the first thing that you actually want to know is exactly what kind of timing the Protoss is going to try to pull off. And by seeing this early cannon, CaStrO can actually decide whether he wants to be maybe some form of a Hydra bust or even go for something economy based. Now, as long as the probe is alive, he can't make that decision without tipping off Remag, but once the probe actually dies, I'm pretty sure he can choose whatever he likes. And until a few, maybe 2 or 3 minutes past this moment, Remag is not going to have any presence on the map apart from that probe. So it's definitely something that CaStrO can use, but I'm not sure that he is going to do that based on the last style that he used to play.
Yeah, and I mean, seeing this drone come down here to the bottom left seems very unlikely to be any kind of shenanigans. I mean, if he was going to go for Hydra pressure, I would almost certainly want to build this hatchery at one of the closer bases to get those Hydras up faster. Otherwise, these ones would have to walk cross map. I mean, it's still possible. It just makes a little bit less sense. I mean, he has only made 2 Zerglings to chase his probe around, so the probe actually, with some okay micro, will be able to stay alive for a little bit longer here. I do like this wall that Remag has made, by the way, very, very efficient. This wall is actually the reason you can go Gateway First expansion against Zerg on this map, sort of the Jangbi style opening if you want, because this is tight on the left of the Forge. I believe it's tight on the right of the pylon as well. I'm not 100% sure about that. So you only have to block the one gap, which is actually really, really nice.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good thing. I mean, unless there's a strong Hydra bust, which by this point, definitely the probe actually knows that it's not what CaStrO is going for. Unless that happens, that wall is pretty much perfect. You just sacrifice the pylon later on to get your beefier units out of there.
Yeah,
but apart from that, I mean, the only thing that is very important at this point, I think, if anything, for Remag, is if he can get that probe again into the main, that would be really good for him.
Yeah, there is one Zergling blocking the ramp, but I don't actually think one Zergling is enough. Is one Zergling enough to block from a probe? I'm not actually 100% sure of that positioning.
It's not, but there's 2 more actually going there.
Okay.
It can still get in if those links are not. Oh.
It just shot the hatchery for no good reason and took a couple of extra shots, but it looks like it's gonna gonna make its way out of there. In the meantime, nothing crazy happening. We just have the Spire constructing in that base. I guess one thing he did see, even though he didn't get into the main, I mean, he he knows there's no second gas, so no like super fast kind of weird Mutatech. Sometimes you can play like a heavy 3-hatch or heavy like Muta style and get that second gas a little bit earlier. Although I'm not actually sure the timing on that. It might even be too early for that, even if you were going for that.
No, it's a little bit too early, but what he did see is actually Zerglings being produced. If you are going to try to go for... Oh, actually Azal is trying to get to the third. Shouldn't get anything done really with this amount of Zerglings, but we'll see about that.
Yep, might just try and... No, he's actually gonna go for a drone here. I thought he might try and hide behind the minerals. Man, unlucky that he didn't get the second hit with that Zealot, or it would have actually killed this drone as well. So only getting one drone with that. Not the best exchange, and looks like Wunzel's actually got a little bit lost outside the wall here. He got walled out by his own probe. Gonna make a second cannon for safety here. There's actually a decent number of Zerglings coming. With only one cannon, it's going to be a little bit iffy, but again, this wall is really nice and tight, so even if a second cannon isn't finished, I think he should be okay against these Zerglings.
Yeah, but the only thing that's actually bad for CaStrO, if he shows all these Zerglings and they have speed, then it's very obvious for remag what he's facing.
Yep, and there we go. Tries to run in, but obviously the Zergling's bugging out a little bit here because there is no path here. This is in fact tight on the right side as well, as I suspected. In the meantime, we have, looks like 2 more gateways being added, Templar Archives, all very standard. We do have the +1 for the Corsairs, so gonna go for a bit of a focus on those, but he's not going for the Ser Zealot style. He is still going for the Templar Archives.
I mean, from remag's perspective, this is really good as long as he can actually keep producing these Corsairs and he doesn't lose any of them. If he loses even one of them, then it becomes a really difficult position because he's not going to have the production. Oh, actually, one of them actually goes down right now. The problem with this kind of build, like with ET style, is that if the Zerg can actually defend against this, then you don't have anything in the mid game that can push out.
Yeah.
So you're trying to do some damage, maybe with a DT, maybe with some Corsairs, but if you don't get anything of that, then you actually have to wait for a very long time until you can get out.
Well, we do actually have a DT killing some of these Zerglings in the front. Obviously, no warning sound here. Is he actually getting all of them? That'd be actually quite nice. Oh, 3 more. Last one, and boom, 10 free Zerglings. That's a pretty nice pickup there. 250 minerals in the bag for that DT as he moves out. But I don't think he's going to get much further here. There are some Sunkens being made at the bottom left base. And you're right, especially since he's he's also going to wait for the Templars to build up energy, and he's adding gateways now. There's going to be a little while before he can move out. He's going to use the Corsairs mainly, for information and harassment. But I mean, this is sort of basically the trade-off. That's what happens in PvZ when you go for the heavy Corsairs. I guess that's one reason why the Ser Zealot style became more popular than going straight for High Templars, so that you can at least get a little bit of pressure on the map before committing further up the tech path, up the tech tree.
I think the main reason why that became so important is because if you go for the style that remag is doing and you're unable to do any kind of damage with the DTs, then unless you go for something cheeky like maybe a Dark Archon, you actually invested a lot early on. It's not like you invested a lot of overall money, but early on you did invest a lot. And while you were doing that, the Zerg can actually get to even a 4th base. So you might try to do something with it, but at the same time the Zerg can get ahead by just basically saying, I'm just gonna make some Sunkens and I'm gonna macro up. And there's nothing you can do about that unless you go very heavy on something like a DT drop.
CaStrO has completely misread the situation though. Look at what's happening. He's built 5 sunken colonies, or 5 creep colonies at least. That back one might be a spore, but he's built so much in the way of static defenses here. Even at the 3rd base here, look how many static defenses he's building. I don't understand this. He did not scout the 3rd base at all. He did not leave a Zergling or a Scourge there to see it. And remag is just taking a free expansion that he has no business taking. If this was attacked by anything like Zerglings or anything as soon as he was building it, that would be immediately shut down. But CaStrO, complete fail on his scouting information, has done the complete opposite of what he should do, which is to build a bunch of defenses against an army that doesn't exist. I don't know what he saw that made him do this.
Even if I agree with the fact that he might gone a little bit overboard, but at the same time he's getting his 4th, and if there's one thing that does work pretty well, is if you do get enough economy as Zerg from, say, 4 to 5 bases, it actually doesn't matter how many bases the Protoss makes, because as soon as you get to that hive tech, and CaStrO is actually now getting his Queen's Nest, you're actually very efficient with cracklings. So remag might be thinking that he's in a great position right now, but he still can't move out. Look at the force that remag actually has. It's not big enough to break any of those bases.
Not yet. And wait, did he manner his own third gas? He did manner his own third gas. But aside from that, I mean, his third base is so much faster than the Zerg's fourth. And while yes, like the hive tech of the Zerg on 4 or 5 bases, you know, like 5 gas is pretty darn scary. As we were saying earlier on, you know, remag has a lot more experience in these like super late game situations. So, you know, even though in general that might be pretty good for the Zerg to get up to their uncontested, it's going to be interesting. Basically, it's going to come down to like the big army control here. You know, who's better with deciding, you know, how to position their army, you know, the usage of the spells, you know, how to deal with backstabs, that sort of thing. All these late game PvZ shenanigans that happen. It looks like a big Overlord field here at the natural is going to get taken down. There are some Hydras here, but a decent number of Overlords get taken down. And supply block the Zerg once again. He's stuck at 93 supply, whereas remag is all the way up to 128.
I agree with you that usually I would favor remag in this position by quite a lot.
Yeah.
What surprises me is that if CaStrO went for this, because think about this, he never made any mutas, he never made anything else, he's actually taken another expansion. Maybe he's actually been practicing to do this kind of stuff. No, I mean, it sounds crazy because that's not how CaStrO usually plays.
Yeah.
But if we prepared, especially against remag, to go this extreme macro style, look at the fact that he actually made a lot of lurkers, which is usually what you would do in this kind of situation if you want to hold off a few bases.
It's funny, I mean, he's taking the 5th base already at the 12, and notice he's taking the 12 instead of the 9, which would be much easier. So if he can actually hold on to the 12 o'clock, he can obviously basically get the 9 for free and split the map. Meanwhile, the Protoss army is doing distraction while there is a storm drop at the bottom left. The main army was a distraction. There was only one storm from the one High Templar in that shuttle. I'm a little bit surprised that there wasn't a second High Templar there. He could have got the entire drone line, but a good storm nonetheless. And he is slowly picking away at the front of this Sunken Lurker Spore defense, or no Sunkens just yet, until you go further in. And that's actually a relatively small Protoss army. He's going to be a little bit careful here not to get surrounded.
And cracklings are about 10 seconds away from finishing, so when that is finished, unless you have an upgrade lead, which at least for now remag has, it's not gonna be easy.
Yeah, I mean, he's putting some pressure on here. I think he should probably actually pull back now. I mean, he is actually sending reinforcements though, so that's good. The thing is, you have to be careful. He used the army to distract for the storm drop, which is really good. You just don't want to overcommit with a small army and get it killed off straight away. Because as we know, you know, the Protoss army, once you lose that bulk force once, it's actually so expensive to rebuild compared to the Zerg army. So it's like...
Look at the probe at the bottom, it actually gets denied the expansion that remag was thinking about taking, so this is pretty much 3 base for the Protoss for a very long time.
The Zerg is getting completely supply blocked though. Look, these Corsairs are just going to town on the Overlords. I don't know what happened. The Overlords should have just stayed around the Spore colony, and now remag is actually going for the frontal bust. He's got to be careful though. He's run out of storms. He's only got 1 storm left. He's making 2 Archons though. He's got a lot of beefy goons, but interestingly, all these extra Sunkens that CaStrO made earlier are actually going to help a lot. And here comes the flank attack, although only looks like a handful of Zerglings. But DT's going in, looks like gonna get taken down, walking into the range of the Spore, but the Protoss army is very, very small now. He's gonna get the dead, but look at this, still supply blocked. CaStrO cannot make units, that's the problem. And he just suicided some more Overlords. He's stuck at 80 supply.
The funny thing is the Protoss army is not yet actually breaking through. The longer this goes on, the better CaStrO might be, because if he can produce just a few Overlords and a few Zerglings, he's gonna kill this.
Yeah, I think remag should try and save these couple of units. The 2 Archons in particular would be very, very useful to save. There's no point continuing. I mean, he can see the 3 Sunkens here with his Corsair, so I don't know why he's continuing to force the issue. And he saw all the eggs morphing, so he must have known that that the Zerg was no longer supply blocked. I really think this army should pull back right now. If it doesn't pull back right now, it's just gonna die.
Oh, look at that, from the 12, from the bottom, and from the main, actually a lot of Zerglings coming in, so this might be good enough for CaStrO.
Although the Archons are doing work here, and oh, another storm actually. Looks like the Protoss army is holding on here somehow, some way.
It's just about 6 dragoons. That's not an army. That's
He's
too
reinforcing though. He's got reinforcements. Remag is going crazy. Remag is going arbiters. He's got recall. Remag has recall. His recall research just finished. He's also expanding to the bottom right here. He hasn't built the Nexus yet, but he's built some cannons. All the thing. The non-stop pressure is allowing him a free expansion. The 12 o'clock, by the way, has not mined a single mineral here yet because it's just been non-stop unit production to try and hold off this attack. This is possibly the longest attack I have ever seen. This is non-stop here. Constant reinforcements. It looks like some more links coming in while the Protoss engages the Sun Guns, but he's still coming in. It's only Zerglings. It's 2-1 against 2-1 actually. The +2 Tiebreakers just finished for the Lings. That'll actually help a lot against the Zealots, but I think it might be the end. But he's actually in the drone line now. The Protoss might kill the drone line before he dies.
He's gonna kill a lot of drones, but bear in mind that actually CaStrO has very little money, so he can't actually replace those drones.
Oh god, and there's 2 spores here, but the overlords are nowhere to be seen. There's only a couple of overlords here anyway. And look at this remag! It's just non-stop aim moving. What?
Oh,
GG from CaStrO. Holy moly.
I mean,
Okay.
that was surprising.
Wow, that was a very interesting tactic there from Remag. Just non-stop rallying of units to the front.
I would say though that that game was a lot closer than we probably see just by watching the fights, because if CaStrO managed to kill that whole army once, then suddenly you're facing a Zerg who has Hive Tech with 5 bases.
I think actually the Corsairs there were pivotal in how that game turned out because they supply blocked CaStrO exactly when he needed to make units. Like as soon as the attack was hitting his front, and he was like panic mode, like, oh god, okay, I need to make units from all my larvae now. Suddenly he had no supplies, so he had to make overlords, but as soon as the overlords come out, the Corsairs kill him again because he didn't have enough spore colonies, and all the Hydras were dead. So there was basically there was like 2 rounds of production where he just couldn't make any units and just had to rely on the units that he had, or he could only make like, less than a control group of Zerglings. So so that was actually really, really good by Remag.
Yeah, and at the same time, the main problem was that he was just making Zerglings. So the difference between making like 10 or 20 Zerglings in population is actually very small, and in minerals is very small. But if you're supply blocked, that's actually huge because these are cracklings, and they were doing a lot of work. So, ooh,
man, well played by Remag though. I'm a bit sad we didn't get to see the Arbiters do anything, but he had it. He had it in the back pocket just in case.
Yeah, I would have to say that to a certain extent, I thought that CaStrO was ahead in that game because if he managed to hold it off, he would be in a great position. But not able to. Just very close, but not.
I completely agree. Just like one wave of, if one set of Protoss reinforcements didn't come, CaStrO would have just cleaned it up and been okay, I think. But yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's the game. And we are going to go on to game 2 of the same series, CaStrO versus Remag, this time on Neo Medusa. So already looking good for Remag. Let's see how CaStrO can play out this map.
All right.